its buildings leaning like they'd given up long ago. 50 years ago, the mine collapsed. 57 men went in, none came out. The shaft was sealed with heavy iron doors, welded shut, and the people who stayed never spoke of it again. But some things can't be buried. They whisper through the cracks, they crawl into your dreams. And if you listen long enough, they find you. The road to Black Hollow was narrower than I remembered, twisting through pine forests that blotted out the morning sun. My rental car hummed quietly, a lonely sound against the wind that hissed through the trees. It had been 17 years since I left this place. I swore I'd never come back, but the email had changed everything. You don't know me, but you need to come home. They're disappearing again. No name, no sender address, just those words. The closer I got to town, the thicker the fog became. Houses appeared like ghosts in the mist, warped shapes with dark, empty windows. I passed the old diner, its neon sign buzzing faintly, the same one I remembered from childhood, except now the windows were boarded up. When I reached the town square, there was no one there, not even a stray dog. I parked in front of the Inn Holloway's boarding house. Mrs. Holloway was still alive, though older, her face drawn and pale. She greeted me with a voice that was more whisper than sound. "You shouldn't have come back," she said. I tried to smile. "I just need a room, a few days, maybe." Her eyes flicked toward the window, toward the fog pressing against the glass. No one stays a few days anymore. They either leave before sunset, or they don't leave at all. I laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. But when I looked into her eyes, I saw it, that deep, brittle fear you can't fake. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing it, a faint, dragging sound outside my door, like something moving slowly down the hall. And then, just before 3 a.m., a voice, low, wet, almost inside my head. "Welcome home, Daniel." Morning came gray and heavy. The fog hadn't lifted. If anything, it had thickened overnight, swallowing the street whole. The light that bled through the curtains was cold and colorless, like it had been filtered through dirty glass. Mrs. Holloway was already in the dining room, pouring black coffee into chipped mugs. The smell should have been comforting, but here it just felt wrong. "Not many people left in Black Hollow," she said, sliding the cup toward me. "And those that are, keep their heads down." I wanted to ask her what she meant, but the sound of the front door opening stopped me. A man stepped in, tall, gaunt, with skin stretched tight over his cheekbones. His eyes were deep-set, shadowed, and locked on me like he already knew my name. "You're Daniel," he said, not a question. "Yeah," I replied, forcing a casual tone. "Do I know you? You knew my brother, James Carter." The name hit me like a fist. James had been my best friend. We'd been inseparable until the summer he vanished. Everyone said he'd run away, but I knew that was a lie. I'd been with him the night he disappeared. I swallowed hard. I remember. The man's gaze sharpened. "Then you remember the mine." Before I could answer, Mrs. Holloway's voice cut in. "Sharp as a knife, Elias, don't." Elias didn't take his eyes off me. "They're coming back, Daniel, same as before. The fog's thicker, the nights are longer. You can hear them if you stand still long enough. Hear who?" I asked, though my stomach was already tightening. He leaned closer, breath cold against my hair, but my feet carried me toward the outskirts, toward the mine. The road ended at the old chain-link fence. Rust ate through the links, and the danger keep-out sign hung crooked. One corner broken free beyond the fence, the mine entrance stood like a gaping wound in the earth. The massive iron doors were still there, welded shut decades ago, but the welds were cracked. I froze. From inside, faint and almost lost in the wind, came a sound. It wasn't metal creaking, and it wasn't water dripping. It was breathing slow, deep, and heavy, the kind of sound you hear when someone is standing right behind you. The fog rolled in thicker, curling through the gaps in the fence, and in that moment, I swore I saw something move, a shadow shifting against the darkness of the mine, taller than a man, its edges blurred like smoke. The breath grew louder, closer, then a whisper, low and dragging. The fog was pressed up against the glass, thick as wet cotton. And in that fog, a shape, tall, motionless, facing me. I couldn't make out a face, only the faint glow of what might have been a lantern swinging gently in its hand. The tapping stopped, then came the breathing. The same deep, hollow sound from the mine. It was right outside the window now, the glass faintly fogging with each exhale. My skin went cold. I backed away slowly, heart slamming against my ribs. That's when the whisper came, so close it felt like it was inside the room, still here. The lamp in the hallway flickered, went out. The room dropped into total darkness. Something moved in the corner. I didn't think. I lunged for the door, yanked it open, and ran down the hallway toward Mrs. Holloway's room. I banged on her door until it creaked open. Her face was pale, eyes wide. She didn't ask what happened. Instead, she said quietly, "They've started." Mrs. Holloway didn't sleep that night. She made us tea in the dim kitchen, the steam curling between us like ghostly fingers. I told her what I'd seen, or thought I'd seen, outside my window. She listened without interruption, but her eyes never met mine. When I finished, she sighed and set her cup down. "You shouldn't have gone to the mine, Daniel. That place, it's not empty." She leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. "They call him the Lantern Man. Nobody knows if he was ever human, or something older that's been here since before the town was built. But they say he carries a lantern to lure you into the dark. Once you follow the light, you never come back the same, if you come back at all." I tried to laugh it off, but my voice cracked, "So he's some kind of ghost story." Mrs. Holloway shook her head slowly. "No, ghosts are just echoes. This thing is alive. And once it learns your name, it can find you anywhere. Even in your dreams." The words sat heavy in the air. I thought of the whisper in the fog, the breath on the glass, the way it had said my name. A sudden noise from upstairs made us both freeze, a slow, dragging step across the floorboards above. Mrs. Holloway's hand gripped mine hard enough to hurt. "He's here." The lantern in the corner, one I hadn't even noticed before, flickered to life on its own. The flame danced, casting long shadows across the walls. In the glass of the kitchen window, I saw my reflection. Only I wasn't holding the cup anymore. I was holding a lantern. I blinked, and the image in the window was gone, just my pale, shaking reflection staring back. But the teacup had slipped from my fingers, shattering on the kitchen floor. Mrs. Holloway didn't move to clean it. She just stared at me, her lips pressed tight. "You saw it, didn't you?" I swallowed. "The lantern." She nodded, almost sadly. "Then it's too late. You've been marked." The word lodged itself in my chest like a shard of glass. "What does that mean?" "It means he'll follow you now. No matter where you go, he's left his light in you. And every night it will burn brighter." I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but deep down I already knew she wasn't. My skin felt feverish, my vision slightly dim around the edges, as if shadows were already pulling at the corners of my eyes. Somewhere outside, the fog began to thicken, curling against the windows like living smoke. Mrs. Holloway hurried to a drawer and pulled out a bundle wrapped in black cloth. She unfolded it to reveal a small, rusted bell. "When he comes," she said, pressing it into my hand, "ring this. It might buy you a little time. But never let him touch you, Daniel, not even for a second." Before I could ask what she meant, the air in the kitchen dropped 10 degrees. The lights flickered. And then came the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps on the porch outside. Step, pause, step. The front door creaked as if a hand was testing the lock. Mrs. Holloway whispered, "Don't make a sound." I held the bell so tightly the metal bit into my skin. From the other side of the door came a low, rasping voice. "Daniel, you left something in the dark." The porch light flickered wildly, casting jagged shadows that danced like demons against the cracked walls. I gripped the bell tighter, heart hammering in my chest. Every breath felt shallow, every second stretched impossibly long. The doorknob rattled a slow, methodical turning. Mrs. Holloway's eyes were wide, frantic. "Not yet, not yet," she whispered, voice breaking. The lock clicked, the door creaked open an inch. A sliver of darkness stretched inside like a living thing. "Daniel," the voice hissed, "you can't hide forever." I lifted the bell and rang it once. The sound was sharp and pure, cutting through the silence like a knife. Outside, the shadow recoiled, retreating a step. The door slammed shut. I collapsed against the wall, breath ragged. Mrs. Holloway shook her head. "That bought you time, but he's coming. He always comes." Suddenly, the lantern in the corner burst into flames, casting the room in hellish orange light. The fire flickered, and in its glow, I saw it, the figure, just beyond the glass window. Tall, dark, and impossibly still, holding a lantern that pulsed with an unnatural light. His eyes were nothing but empty holes, and then he smiled. I didn't wait for another knock. Throwing on my jacket, I bolted through the back door into the fog-choked night. The world outside was a blur of gray and shadow, the streetlights flickering weakly through the mist. I could hear it behind me, slow, relentless footsteps. The lantern man. I ran without looking back, heart pounding so loud I thought it would burst through my ribs. Branches clawed at my face and arms as I dashed through the overgrown streets, trying to find any sign of life or safety. But Black Hollow was empty, too empty. A cold wind wrapped around me, whispering my name over and over, like a dark lullaby. "Daniel, Daniel," I stumbled into the town square, the fog swirling thicker, the shadows deeper. Suddenly, the street lamps died, darkness swallowed me whole. Then, a faint glow appeared ahead, the flicker of a lantern's flame. I knew it was him. I had nowhere left to run. The faint glow of the lantern pulsed like a heartbeat, beckoning me forward through the darkness. My breath came in ragged gasps, every nerve screaming to stop, but my feet moved on their own. Pulled by a force I couldn't fight, the town square felt alien now, twisted by the fog. The buildings seemed to lean inward, closing me in, ahead. The lantern's light danced between broken bricks and scattered debris. Suddenly, the ground beneath me shifted. I fell into cold, sticky mud, sinking up to my knees. I scrambled, but the earth clung like fingers, holding me fast. Behind me, the footsteps slowed, then stopped. The lantern man's voice drifted through the mist. "You can't run from the dark, Daniel." Panic surged. I thrashed against the mud, desperate to free myself. A cold hand grazed my shoulder. I screamed, but the voice whispered again, "This is only the beginning." The mud clung to me like a second skin as I struggled, but it wasn't just the earth that held me, it was something else. A dark presence pressing against my soul. I felt it, then a searing heat on my wrist. I looked down to see a faint, glowing symbol burning into my skin, pulsing in rhythm with the lantern man's lantern light. Fear knotted in my gut. This mark wasn't just a brand, it was a tether. No matter where I ran, no matter how far, this mark would guide the lantern man to me. The whisper returned, a cold breath on my neck. "You belong to the dark now, Daniel." I closed my eyes, willing the nightmare to end. But when I opened them, the fog had thickened. The world reduced to shadows and silence except for the faint glow of a lantern, drifting closer. I ran. The fog swallowed my footsteps, the cold air burning my lungs. Every turn I took led me deeper into Black Hollow's twisting streets, but the town seemed to shift and change behind me as if the fog itself was alive, reshaping the path. No matter how fast I moved, the faint glow of the lantern was never far behind. A cruel reminder that escape was impossible, I stumbled into an old churchyard. I descended into the cold, damp underground. The walls were lined with old mining tools, rusted chains, and faded symbols etched deep into stone. At the bottom, a vast cavern stretched out, and in its center, a large, broken altar, stained dark with what looked like dried blood. Suddenly, a shadow moved behind me. I spun around, but there was nothing, only the distant, rhythmic glow of a lantern, waiting. The cavern walls seemed to close in as I stepped closer to the altar. Faded symbols, once vibrant with color, told a story of fear and desperation, a ritual meant to contain something older than the town itself. I traced the carvings with trembling fingers, reading words in a language I couldn't understand, but the meaning was clear: sacrifice. A chill crawled up my spine. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the shadows, not the lantern man's, but softer, pleading, "Help us." I spun around to see ghostly figures rising from the darkness. Faces twisted in pain, eyes pleading for release. They were the miners, trapped for 50 years beneath Black Hollow. The ritual had bound them, their souls caught between life and death, guardians of the curse. The lantern man was no mere ghost. He was the keeper of the pact, the price paid for silence and survival. I realized then that breaking the curse meant facing him and risking becoming another lost soul. The cavern trembled as the lantern man stepped into the flickering torchlight, his lantern casting twisted shadows on the jagged walls. "Daniel," he hissed, voice like grinding stone, "you've come far, but this is where your journey ends." I gripped the rusted bell tightly, feeling its weight grounding me. "I'm not afraid of you," he laughed, a hollow, broken sound that echoed through the cavern. "You should be." The lantern's flame flared, and suddenly the shadows lunged at me, tendrils of darkness clawing to drag me into the abyss. I rang the bell desperately, the sharp chime cutting through the darkness. For a moment, the shadows recoiled, giving me space to move. I darted forward, smashing the lantern against the cavern wall. The flames sputtered, then died. A scream echoed, raw and primal, shaking the cavern to its core. The lantern man staggered back, his form flickering like a dying flame. I took a deep breath. "It's over," but as I turned to leave, I felt a cold hand grip my ankle and a whisper in my ear. "This is never over." The cavern seemed to shudder as I pulled myself free from the lantern man's grip. The oppressive darkness gave way to a faint glimmer of moonlight filtering through cracks above. With trembling hands, I scrambled up the jagged staircase, every step echoing like a heartbeat in the silent depths. Behind me, distant screams faded into a haunting silence. Bursting out into the night air, the fog clung to me like a shroud. Black Hollow was still asleep, or perhaps waiting. I ran through the deserted streets, the weight of the curse heavy on my shoulders. Every shadow felt like it watched. Every whisper carried a warning. I didn't stop until the town disappeared behind me, swallowed by the mist and silence. But as I glanced back one last time, I saw it, a faint glow in the window of the boarded-up inn. The lantern's light was still burning, and I knew the curse would never truly end. Back in the city, life tried to feel normal again, but something had changed inside me. At night, I could still hear the faint whisper of the lantern's flame, like a distant heartbeat calling me back. Friends noticed I was quieter, distracted, haunted. I tried to forget Black Hollow, but the mark on my wrist throbbed beneath my sleeve, a constant reminder that I was still tied to that place sometimes. When the world was silent, I could hear a voice, low and persistent. "Daniel, you left something in the dark." I knew the truth now. The curse wasn't just a story, it was a living nightmare. And no matter where I went, the lantern man's light would follow, because some darkness never fades. Months passed, and Black Hollow faded from the news and my thoughts, but it wasn't gone. One quiet evening, far away from the cursed town, a new whisper stirred the silence. A young woman, miles from Black Hollow, sat alone in her room when she heard it, a voice, faint and low,